All right, guys, today is the day I'm very excited for. It is suspension day for my 2007 Ram 2500. If you have not seen this truck before, we did a video on me trying to find what is, I think, my dream Ram 3rd Gen. And today is gonna be suspension day. I've put about 1,000 or so miles on the stock suspension. If you've never ridden in a stock 3rd Gen, it's something to experience. I mean, it literally, in one of the Southern California carpool lanes, threw me out of my seat and I thought I was gonna crash. The suspension on these trucks is essentially trash. All right, so here we are. This is gonna be a standard neighborhood, runoff drainage ditch. So we're gonna be doing, right about 18, 20 miles an hour. And there's no way you could even hold a coffee cup or anything like that. So we'll pick up a little bit more speed. This is a little more of a muted one. But as you can see by the camera moving, me moving, it literally puts you out of your seat. Literally driving this truck in a neighborhood, right? That I'm not speeding, I'm not doing 50 miles an hour over a dip or anything like that. This is just like your literal standard neighborhood dip, nothing, dramatized or anything like that. Going the normal speed you'd go through in a cut through street, like the larger street in a neighborhood. And yeah, it literally feels like there's no suspension up front. So it's not horrible. And those of you who with newer diesel trucks, they actually ride much better than this, right? So here's a, just standard dip. So we're gonna take it back to the shop, throw the parts on, and we'll show you guys just how much of the difference there is with really just coils, custom tuned shocks, and new wheels and tires. So today, this truck is getting a Carli Backcountry 2.0 system. My goal with this overall build is essentially to build a utilitarian do-it-all truck. However, unlike a lot of the videos on our channel, we're not looking to smash this truck off-road. Kind of got some purpose-built toys at this point in my life. And for this, I just want a truck. I want a really nice riding, really nice driving, all-encompassing truck build. And so that is what this build is all about. So it's gonna see basic dirt roads, things like that, but most of its time is actually gonna be spent on Southern California highways, things like that. And that is where a solution like this comes in killer. So let's jump into it and you guys can laugh at me along the way. A lot of you might not know this, but this company actually started in colonized parents' driveway. Back then we were buying and selling what you see behind me, a lot of these 3rd Gen Dodge diesel trucks. And how it actually started is because we were buying and selling so many trucks, a lot of them had bad shocks, tires, etc. So we needed to start a company account in order to get wholesale pricing on parts. That is in fact the very short cliff notes of how CJC Off-Road got started. So I was the one who was actually turning the wrenches back then. However, it's probably been since 2016 since I've worked on one of these trucks. So we're gonna see if I still remember how to rip one apart. Pretty much in typical YouTube fashion, I already forgot. Shock tops are always done easier on the ground, and that's even something I tell all the guys here. So we'll do a little work twice. Ripping apart the front end on a 3rd Gen actually isn't terribly difficult. You just got to start from the top. So you're gonna want to disconnect what's really holding the axle up and in place, your shocks, your track bar, the sway bar. Once those parts are unbolted, the axle pretty much swings out. The control arms are the final pieces holding the front axle under the truck. Those will even rest on the mount, so the straps that you see behind me aren't even fully necessary at this stage of the game. So a long time ago, we found that using ratchet straps is much easier, arguably safer than the traditional screw jack method when stabilizing axles, etc. Because A, you can't set the truck on them and flip it off. B, you do kind of get a lot of control of the speed of climbing or descending with just the strap handle. So in these instances where we're really not putting a ton of tension on these straps, it's very handy to use these. Now again, if you're in your driveway or something like that, obviously it's gonna be a different argument, but on a lift, a simple 2.5 inch strap like this works miracles. But all in all, I'd say this truck is pretty clean and actually came apart quite easily. Now, one of the other things you're gonna notice is that the exhaust is undone, and we've shown you some clips of firing the muffler off the rear of the truck. The goal for that is because of the next step in the process, the control arms. The control arms, in order to get the passenger side control arms out of the truck, you've got to move the downpipe. I figured while we're wrestling with all that, moving the hangers, all of those different components, why not put a nice catback exhaust system on the truck? And thanks to Banks Power, I have an excellent setup for this truck. It's gonna be a fully carb legal, so for those of you who are in carb states, you can absolutely run this setup. A fully carb legal catback setup. I'm gonna keep the OEM cat and downpipe on this truck for now. The kind of power plans, etc. I have for it don't require me to change that. Again, I do want to keep this to be a relatively streetable setup, so we're going to go ahead and put that catback setup on. While this truck's pretty dang clean, I'm pretty sure this control arm bolt right behind me is going to require a little bit of love from the torch and the sawzall. 2 blades and 1 battery pack. I think we're going to Home Depot and grab some more blades. After I got the arms out, I went, took a lunch, opened my email, and saw that one of our projects for 2025, these CJC exclusive, clear anodized Carli billet control arms, were just a few weeks away. So we're about 6 weeks from when we last were working on this. It's a little bit colder, and we're gonna go ahead and toss in these brand new arms. Super stoked with the finish, and it's gonna match the overall theming I have planned for this build and a couple parts we have coming out in 2025 as well. The control arms are in. I could not be more stoked with how that clear anodized finish turned out. The black anodizing always looked good, but however, to tie in the build, I really wanted to go with clear anodizing, got them to put this batch together, so I'm extremely excited there. From here, we're gonna move on to the shocks and coils. The most important part about this whole process when putting the shocks and coils in, do not forget the stud rings. So we're going to go ahead and toss this coil in. It's not going to be side specific. Obviously, we're trying not to damage the shock at the same time. Upper stud ring is in, and let's see how bad I fumble this one. It has been at least 7 years since I put one of these back in. It's pretty common to get stuck right here when popping these longer coil springs that Carli are throwing in the truck. This one's a little more compliant because we were on a lift and the shock's detached and everything's detached, so we have a little bit more room. Pry bar, get it under this front lip, get the pressure on the coil spring, and usually kicking with your boot or your shoe or whatever you got on will help. Thankfully this one, I mean, required basically no effort. But again, depending on your truck configuration, things like that, getting a pry bar, something right around this sway bar, that bucket, hitting it in, and you're good to go. From here, we're gonna just essentially slap the rest of the truck back together. Shocks, track bar, sway bar, and your front end's complete. A little bit of not so TV magic. This truck had a Moog track bar in it. Clearly their specs are a little bit more compressed, or a little bit narrower than factory. So while this bar would slide in on an untouched truck, again, because it's been replaced, we're gonna have to use a pry bar, open up this pocket just a little bit, and then be able to tap this bar in. I know the ratchet strap's gonna seem a little bit untraditional or even unsafe, but it's definitely the quickest way to set the track bar or shift the axle over when your front end's in the air, right? So as we've talked about in other videos, if the truck's on the ground, use your steering wheel to set it up. However, doing this on the lift, using the track bar makes it extremely easy just to shift that axle over, get that track bar bolt pinned. From there, we're gonna move on to the reservoir mounts. The reservoir mounts are quite simple on these trucks. However, you do have to place them yourself, so you wanna make sure that where you do place them allows that sway bar to clear as it moves up and down. Use those self-tappers, set it into the frame, and you're gonna be good to go there. Couldn't help but move from the Carli decal to our own CJC in-house decal. It's a basics, decal that we like. It kind of ties up the whole front end together. The overall aesthetics of it are quite nice. And lastly, when you are either using Carli's decal or our own, a little bit of heat shrink goes a long way. So we grab some 3/8 inch heat shrink, put it on these resi clamps, and kind of cleans up the overall look as well. So what we like to think is that these little things add up to make for a very good looking overall package. From there, we have one final front end part. Last step for the big components, sway bar. This is a little bit of reverse order of how the Carli instructions say to do it, but we got the brackets on the bar. We'll go to put them on the frame, pound the arms on, set the end links, and we're golden. After all that, we're turning our attention to the steering stabilizer. Now, one of my favorite things about this Carli stabilizer is the versatility of it, right? So sometimes you're gonna need the stabilizer to push left, sometimes you're gonna need to push right, and with just a simple diff cover change, you can actually get the same stabilizer to push one way or another, just depending on the mounting orientation that you have with the shock. Now that we got the front end all wrapped up, we're gonna move to the rear. The rear is much simpler as far as components are concerned. We have the Carli Progressive full leaf pack. They're gonna be topped off with Carli's new fabricated shackle, and then the Carli Backcountry rear shocks. Now, what's gonna benefit overall the ride quality of this truck is just ripping out that factory spring that's extremely stiff, has zero suspension travel, putting in a much softer leaf spring that has a lot more suspension travel, and it's gonna work really well for my around town needs. The leaf springs on this truck are definitely a two-man task. If you've ever tackled one of these, they are a bear. Wyatt here from our shops to help me out. He's worked for us for, I don't know, a countless amount of years now. He's been in a lot of our videos, and yeah, he's gonna help me tackle this. He also is the #1 person to rib me for the lack of tool usage, my clean tools, and everything in between. So let's get this done, Wyatt. These leaf springs are extremely heavy. When we actually ship them to customers, the on-pallet weight is roughly 280 pounds, so it definitely helps to have a second set of hands and or a ratchet strap and also a jack stand, depending on if you're doing this in your driveway or on a lift. So overall, you're essentially just gonna be removing the factory leaf springs, popping in the replacement. using the shackle, mounting that to the frame and swapping the shocks. So in theory, this is very quick, but as you can see, it's definitely a little bit of a wrestling match. I can't. There we go. All right. For people who are also following along, trying to do kind of a restoration project like this, these shackles are a pretty cool solution. I mean, this truck is pretty low mileage. You can see the vulcanized bushings, pretty worn out. Once we put a leaf spring that actually moved on it, you know, it's going to move a heck of a lot more and probably, you know, blow the rest of this rubber out pretty quick. So we're not only going to get the ride quality gain of this, but even like a tighter rear end as the shackle's not going to be slapping around back there. So all around, it's a win. Good. Nothing would be more disappointing than putting all this effort in and having the wheels of this truck fall off. So I would have to say the number one most common missing is when putting one of these trucks together, doing a full build, especially a fresh truck. This one somehow still has its original rotor clips. So these clips right here, an aftermarket wheel will not sit against those. So one side would sit flat, one side would sit against this clip. That makes the wheel wobble a little bit. Eventually your wheel studs will snap. If you go on a Facebook group for a Ram, you'll very often see a Ram who lost its wheel on the highway. That is basically always tied to these rotor clips. So use some side cutters, chisel, whatever tools, flathead, get those rotor clips off. All of them, is there's usually like around 3 per hub. That's gonna save yourself a lot of hassle. With the rotor clips gone, the brakes bled, it's time for the wheel and tire package. For this build, I think this Avenger 2.0 and the machine finish of the black lip perfectly matches not only the chrome bumpers, just the black accents that these third gens have. I think it's a pretty timeless design, nothing crazy, nothing too youthful, or, you know, we get these different comments on the phone that, hey, I'm a 55-year-old guy. I think this wheel kind of keeps up with the current off-road trends, yet still, you know, will last a long time as far as trendiness goes. For tires, this is the Falcon AT4, so their new updated tire. They were gracious enough to provide these for me for the build. I'm running the Falcon RTs on my Super Duty. I've been happy with them. For this, that was kind of a little bit more aggressive than I was needing. I think the AT is going to work really well for both my commute and kind of where I plan on taking this truck. If I want to go to the mountains, they've got the snow rating. Around town, they're going to be quiet. I think overall, they're just going to work really well for, again, what my uses are with this build. I've been spending a little bit more time at my desk than in the shop. I'm not quite sure I can one-man toss this like the guys in our shop do. Definitely a little out of practice. Watching Wyatt just toss it on like it's nothing. Shameful for me. Taking a step back, I could not be more stoked and excited for how this truck has turned out, and I can't wait to take it on its first test drive. Moving from the front to the back, just giving you a quick glance overall setup of what we went with. It's going to have the Carli 3-inch Backcountry system, which is going to be upgraded with Carli's new billet clear anodized control arms, the Carli torsion sway bar, and then the Carli low mount steering stabilizer. Moving to the rear, the Carli full progressive spring pack, their fabricated shackle, and again, that Backcountry reservoir shock package is going to sum up the Carli parts there. And we topped the overall package off with the CJC Off-Road stainless brake line package. I figured the age of this truck, a fresh set of brake lines is never going to hurt and only going to increase the brake pedal feel. I'm pretty excited. It's been about 6 weeks since I haven't driven this truck, so look forward to how it rides, seeing how it sounds. And yeah, it's like a kid on Christmas. Steering wheel still crooked, haven't even recentered that. We're gonna go hit those same exact dips that we hit before we pulled this thing into the shop, what, 6-8 weeks ago. There is a thick layer of fire ash on the dashboard and the glass because I wasn't very smart and left the windows open on this thing while we were on the lift. But overall, I'd say that there's still, you know, the 37s are gonna absorb most of these small imperfections right away, so we're already feeling the gains there. We're gonna go, I think we're doing 25 before, 35, probably easily. Try not to run over a pedestrian. huge difference. Now, people are gonna be like, oh, you know, you guys are messing around with the camera, doing stuff. This is currently being filmed on an iPhone of all things, so we're not using any fancy equipment. The iPhone's actually gonna smooth it out, if anything, so the stock clips would have been smoothed as well, but I cannot emphasize what a difference between the tires, the suspension, and what it is. I mean, that would have bucked me out of the, you know, the seat with the stock spring. Same things right here. I mean, massive dips. I could hold a cup of coffee, you know, whatever. The improvement's huge. I know I'm gonna get some comments of why didn't you go with a pin top and unchained, a long arm, your brother's 3rd gen is way cooler than yours, etc., etc. My goal here was just to build an overall killer around town setup. I have my Super Duty with a camper in it, which is a very cool purpose-built rig, but sometimes I just want a truck to haul my mountain bike or pick something up off of Marketplace my wife sent me to grab, whatever. I just wanted a very cool, very well-riding, around town, well-rounded setup. And I think what we see here behind me is the perfect formula for that. The Backcountry shock package is designed to work really well around town, yet if I do want to take my dog out to where I work with it for some training, things like that, hit some dirt roads, big potholes, train tracks at speed, so on and so forth, these shocks are going to work really well for that, yet again, still going to give me a good commute. And so that is basically why I ended up at the Backcountry shock package, because yes, it is not the top tier of the catalog, but is the perfect fit for my uses. Thank you so much for following along on this build. I have a lot of plans still for this truck, so this will not be a one video setup. We're trying to make this kind of like a series in the works. We've got a lot of performance upgrades that have come from Banks. I want to do a lot of creature comfort updates, kind of like a CarPlay stereo, modern lighting. Obviously some of the CJC lighting kits are gonna go on there. We're not quite sure what the order we're gonna do is gonna be. And we do want to take a lot of suggestions from you guys. As mentioned, underneath the truck, the transmission is leaking. So guys with 5.9 3rd gens, comment down below with your favorite trans builder, tag them even. So we're trying to kind of keep this build moving forward. I definitely don't want this transmission leaking in my driveway. So yeah, really thankful for you guys for following along. I'm completely in love with this truck. It's been a dream of mine to get an old man tan 3rd gen, and I think it is turning out killer. So if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, comment down below. If you want to see us do some modifications within reason, comment those as well. This will a little bit be a little bit more of a mellow around town build. Comment on Cole's 3rd gen build that's gonna be coming along on the channel as well. That'll be a little bit more wild. So we'll see you guys there, and thanks again for watching.